The grand hall of the city council loomed like a great beast, its once grand arches now a memory of opulence, adorned with crumbling murals that whispered tales of ambition and betrayal. Dust motes danced in the rare shafts of sunlight that filtered through shattered stained glass, illuminating the figures within, their hushed tones weaving a tapestry of political intrigue. Ulysses Norran stood at the center, his lean frame clad in a tailored navy suit, the golden embroidery glinting like a crown upon his brow. His piercing green eyes swept over the assembly, a mixture of trepidation and resolve churning within him. He prepared to navigate the treacherous waters of an assembly alive with rivalries. The air was thick with an oppressive weight, a blend of opportunity and danger, where every word could be a knife, and every glance a promise or a threat. Ulysses cleared his throat, the sound echoing like a signal, and the room fell into a tense silence. "Ladies and gentlemen of the council," he began, his voice steady, but his heart raced. He caught the eye of Isidore, the antagonist, seated across the room, whose hawkish gaze scrutinized him like a predator, sizing up its prey. Every syllable became a calculated move in a game where stakes were high. We stand at a crossroads, confronted by the resource allocations that will determine the future of our beloved Delta. Shall we not ensure that our decisions reflect the best interests of our constituents? The weight of his question hung in the air, a gauntlet thrown down before the assembly. Isidore leaned back, crossing his arms, a sardonic smile playing at the corners of his lips. "Ah, Ulysses, passionate as a... But passion alone cannot feed the hungry or quench the thirst of our people. You speak of interests, yet what of your own ambitions?" The ripple of murmurs that followed hinted at the tension brewing beneath the surface, and Ulysses felt the thrill of the dance. A tightrope walk over a chasm of political ruin. He held Isidore at gaze, forcing a smile that was more a baring of teeth than an invitation. "Ambition drives us all, Isidore I aim use LRB," Isis replied, his voice smooth, though the pulse at his temples quickened. "And yet, I have a vision, a sustainable future where wealth is not amassed in the hands of the few, but shared among the many. Don't you want to be remembered not just for your victories, but for your legacy?" The room crackled with anticipation, a tempest of opinions and ambitions swirling like a storm. Ulysses, feeling the electricity in the air as alliances shifted and lines were drawn. The debate intensified, voices rising and falling like waves crashing against the shore, with factions forming round Ulysses and Isidore. Each argument taught a thrill of exhilaration mixed with a fear of miscalcule. As Ulysses listened to the council murmurs, the scent of polished wood and the faint musk of antiquity filled his lungs, grounding him against the treacherous tides of his ambition. Here, in this grand hall, decisions would be made that could either propel or ruin him. As the debate reached a fever pitch, Ulysses felt the weight of the moment pressing down on him. The world dulled the hall, fading into a blur. He was no longer just a player in this game. He was the architect of something larger than himself. With the final glance at Isidore, whose expression had shifted from smug confidence to a barely concealed fury, Ulysses took a deep breath, the taste of impending cane sharp on his tongue. He knew he had stirred the pot, igniting rivalries that could backfire spectacularly, but also forge unlikely alliances. The stakes had never been higher, and, as the council prepared to vote, Ulysses stepped closer to the precipice of his ambition, the realization dawning that victory would come at a cost he was beginning to understand. The dilapidated library crouched at the outskirts of the city like a forgotten sentinel, its cracked walls whispering secrets of a past that once shimmered with ambition. Dust motes floated lazily in the shafts of sunlight, filtering through shattered stained glass, casting fractured rainbows across the stone floor. The air was thick with the scent of mildew and old parchment, a testament to years spent in quiet decay. Ulysses Norran burst through the heavy wooden doors, the worn hinges creaking in protest as he strode into the dim light. His tailored navy suit, a stark contrast to the library disrepair, billowed slightly, lending him an air of authority even amidst the chaos. His piercing green eyes scanned the room, landing on the figure hunched over a weather-ed tome, his mentor, Elysia. A woman whose wisdom had guided him through treacherous waters. Elysia looked up, the lines of her eyes deepening as a durable smile tugged at her lips. "You're late, Ulysses. Were you busy courting your rivals?" Her voice was smooth like aged wine, laced with amusement yet tinged with a seriousness that cut through the air. Ulysses shrugged, his brow furrow as he approached, the weight of urgency bearing down upon him. "No time for pleasantries, Elysia. The earthquakes, there's something more beneath the surface. I feel it. Something important has been unearthed, and I need your guidance." Elysia's expression shifted, the playful glint in her eyes replaced by a cautious vigilance. She gestured toward a scattered array of maps and scrolls laid out across a time-worn table, the ink faded yet still filled with vitality. "True. The Tremor have exposed long-buried secrets, a site that has been lost to time. A map shows its location, and if the legends are correct, there's a relic hidden there, one of immense power. But, Ulysses, power comes with its own burdens." His heart raced at the thought, the flicker of ambition igniting within him. "If I could find it, Elysia, I could secure my position, perhaps even reshape the council's fate. Imagine if my rivals, especially Isidore, would cower before such a revelation." His voice was thick with the promise of glory, yet beneath the bravado, a tremor of uncertainty lingered. Elysia leaned closer, her tone gray. "But at what cost? The path to power is often paved with danger. Many have sought the relic, and those who do not heed the warnings." Ulysses clenched his jaw, determination hardening his features. "I'm not afraid of danger. I've faced worse than whispers of the past."
"This is my chance, Elysia.
To rise to be more than just another name in the council." A flash of hesitation crossed her face, and she placed a steadying hand on his arm. "Ambition is a double-edged sword, Ulysses. You must be prepared for what lies ahead. The truth you unearth may change you, and not always for the better." Ulysses drew back slightly, the weight of her warning settling like a stone in his gut, yet the fire in his chest burned brighter. He nodded, resolved. "Perhaps the risks are worth it. I will find the relic, Elysia. I'll make my mark on this city, and no earthquake or rival will stand in my way." As he turned to examine the map spread before him, the ink seemed to pulse with possibilities, its edges curling like the tendrils of fate. With each heartbeat, he sensed the tension of history tightening around him, setting the stage for the monumental choices that lay ahead. The edge of the sacred land loomed before Ulysses Norran, an ominous chasm breaking the earth's surface like a wound that had long sealed. The stench of damp earth, mixed with the sweet fragrance of blooming wildflowers, a paradox of beauty against the backdrop of devastation. Hushed whispers of ancient spirits fluttered through the cool breeze, tugging at the edges of his resolve as he peered into the abyss. Flickering shadows danced in the waning light, and the air crackled with the weight of his impending choice. He could feel his pulse quicken, each heartbeat echoing the battle within him, ambition thrumming against an undercurrent of doubt. Just as he took a step past the precipice, a familiar voice sliced through the silence, stirring the tension in his chest even further. "You think you can just dive in there, Ulysses?" His Tidora voice was low, almost mocking, as he stepped into the dim light, his silhouette sharp against the darkening sky. His features were stark, the gleam in his eyes like polished steel, a reminder of the countless games they had played in the political arena.
What truth do you hope to find in that darkness?
Those who seeking often pay a price far heavier than they expect. Ulysses straightened, feeling the cool stone beneath his fingertips, a futile anchor in the shifting tides of his ambition. What do you pay for the cost? You've always thrived on chaos, haven't you? Ulysses shot back, his voice steady yet laced with an edge that betrayed his anxiety. He could feel the pull of the sinkhole, the promise of power pulling him closer, like a siren tall. I must know what happened before I lead. I can't let fear dictate my path. Not now. Isidore stepped forward, the tension between them crackling like dry leaf underfoot. But is it worth the blood on your hands? It are things better left buried, Ulysses. This land, he gestured toward the sacred surroundings, the whispers of the past echoing in the air. It remembers every betrayal. What legacy will you leave if you unravel its secrets? Ulysses clenched his jaw, feeling the weight of his scar, if it were a brand, a reminder of past choices that haunted him still. The moral line blurred as he searched Isidore's expression, hoping to find a hint of understanding. But all he saw was determination, an unyielding challenge that only deepened his resolve. You misunderstand me, Ulysses replied, voice low but resolute, stepping toe to the brink, his heart pound. This isn't mere ambition. It's about reshaping our future and ensuring those who walk after us have a land worth fighting for. If I fail, it's not just me who falls, although His gaze fell back toward the gaping void, a world of uncertainty stretching out before him. The pull was irresistible, a dark promise of truth and power that could redefine everything. But doubt flickered within him, a whisper that begged him to reconsider. Was this truly the path to redemption, or merely another descent into darkness? Closing Particle and Hella. As the wind howled softly around them, Ulysses felt the chasm's pull intensify, the echoes of Isidore's words battling against his yearning for the truth. He could not turn back now, not when the answers lay so tantalizingly close. But as he moved to step forward, Isidore's hand shot out, gripping his arm with surprising strength.
Ulysses, if you go down there may not be a way back.
You could lose everything you've fought for. The gravity of the moment hung thick in the air. Ulysses met Isidore's gaze, a tempest of ambition and conflict swirling within him. What lay beyond the edge of the world felt monumental, and in that heartbeat he understood this was not just a choice about the sacred land, it was a reckoning with his very soul. As he stood poised on the brink, the future loomed uncertain, and, with a final breath, he prepared to leap into the unknown, risking it for a truth that might shatter him or set him free. 전문가로서 문체와 표현의 가리를 타냐내었습니다. 이 장면은 스릭터와 배경의 중심으로 전개되는 갈등의 본질을 잘 드러내고 있으며 독자가 긴장감 넘치는 순간을 경험할 수 있도록 구성되었음이 그리고 대화와 행동은 그들의 성격을 반영하며 시각적이고 감각적인 요소가 독자를 더욱 몰입하게 만듭니다. 마지막 문장은 긴장감과 결단한 순간을 돋보이게 하여 다음 장면으로 훅을 형성합니다.
이 작업이 그 기대에 부응하여 기대 안 한다.
Title: As the wind howled softly out them, Ulysses felt the chasm's pull intensify, the echoes of Isidore's words battling against his yearning for the truth. He could not turn back now, not when the answers lay so tantalizingly close. But as he moved to step forward, Isidore's hand shot out, gripping his arm with surprising strength.
Ulysses, if you go down there, there may not be a way back.
You could lose everything you've fought for. The gravity of the moment hung thick in the air. Ulysses met Isidore's gaze, a tempest of ambition and conflict swirling within him. What lay beyond the edge of the world felt monumental, and in that heartbeat he understood this was not just a choice about the sacred land, it was a reckoning with his very soul. As he stood poised on the brink, the future loomed uncertain, and with a final breath, he prepared to leap into the unknown, risking it for a truth that might shatter him or set him free. The grand hall of the Delta, once a beacon of unity and strength, now stood in ghostly silence, the air thick with the musty fragrance of decay and lost ambition. Cracked walls adorned with faded murals whispered tales of glory, while flickering torches cast unease across the remnants of what had been a vibrant gathering place. Ulysses Norran, tall and commanding in his tailored navy suit, stepped forward, the golden embroidery glinting like his ambition. The cloak billowed behind him, a dark wave in the sepulchral light. He took in the assembly a tapestry of wary faces, each one a potential ally or adversary. The weight of his purpose pressed down like the dust motes dancing in the sunbeams filtering through shattered windows, a reminder of the precarious balance of power he sought to reclaim. Together we can forge a path that benefits us all, Ulysses began, his voice steady yet tinged with an urgency that echoed off the stone walls. The sacred land is not merely a resource, it is our legacy. United, we can restore its vitality and ensure prosperity for generations. A murmur rippled through the crowd, but lurking in the shadows, Isidore Draxis observed with cold, calculating eyes. He leaned against a crumbling pillar, his dark robes flowing like smoke, whispering doubts into the ears of key faction members, sowing seeds of skepticism with every word. What guarantee do we have that his ambitions don't cloud his judgment?
Isidore's voice was a silken hiss, barely audible yet potent enough to disrupt the fragile hope woven by Ulysses' fervent plea.
The tension in the hall thickened as Ulysses hazed the shift in demeanor among the council members, their brows furrowing with uncertainty. I assure you, he continued, his resolve hardening, my vision is not one of conquest, but of collaboration. We have the power to reshape our future. Yet his words hung in the air. He felt the subtle pull of Isidore's influence, wrapping round the minds of those who once leaned favorably toward him. The room filled with whispers, doubts overshadowing his passionate declaration, creating an atmosphere heavy with distrust. You cannot trust a man whose motives are cloaked in ambition, one influential faction member murmured, glancing toward Isidore, whose satisfied smirk revealed a triumph in the shadows. As the murmurs escalated into a chorus of dissent, Ulysses clenched his fists, his heart pounding beneath the tailored fabric of his suit. He cast a desperate glance toward Elysia Voss, his mentor, who stood at the periphery, her expression a blend of concern and support. We must act now, Ulysses, she urged silently, her eyes reflecting the weight of his failure and the hope still flickering within her. Yet, with every passing heartbeat, the reality set in. Isidore's cunning manipulation had derailed his carefully laid plans, leaving him exposed and vulnerable in front of the faction. The hall, once echoing with dreams of unity, was now a battleground of ambition and deceit, and Ulysses stood at the precipice of losing everything he had fought for, caught in the tightening snare of his rival machinations. The ancient library, a sanctuary of dust and shadows, stood as a testament to knowledge long forgotten, its towering shelves crammed with tomes whose spines were cracked and faded. Sunlight filtered through the grime-coated windows, illuminating the motes of dust that danced like spirits in the musty air, while the faint scent of parchment and aged wood clung to the surroundings. Ulysses Norran, his tailored navy suit contrasting sharply against the sepia tenon relics, moved with purpose, his fingers tracing the spines of the books. He searched for answers. A sense of urgency thrummed beneath his composed exterior, echoing the recent tremor that had shaken the Delta. As he reached for a particularly ancient text, the heavy wooden door creaked open, revealing his mentor Seraphi, whose wise gaze held worry, deepened by the shadows of the library. "What have you found, Ulysses?" she asked, her voice a soft whisper layered with the weight of unspoken history. Ulysses glanced up, his piercing green eyes flashing with determination. "I've traced the origin of the relic to this library. It may have connections to the earthquakes. If I decipher these texts," his fingers trembled slightly as he opened the tome, the pages crackling like dried leaves. Seraphi stepped close, peering over his shoulder, her breath hitching as they began to illuminate the cryptic passages together. However, just as they uncovered a significant leader reference to an ancient pact sealed in blood, a shadow flickered at the periphery of the library, unsettling the stillness. It was Isidore, Ulysses' rival, his smirk almost palpable in the dim light. "Looking for something, Ulysses," he drawled, his tone dripping with mockery as he approached, his presence suffocating the air between them. "You should know better than to dig into the past. Some secrets are better left buried, Isidore." Voice rose above the hushed whispers of the library, echoing ominously off the crumbling walls. Ulysses' pulse quickened, frustration bubbling beneath his skin. "Your threats mean nothing to me, Isidore." "I will uncover the truth, no matter the cost," he retorted, his resolve hardening like steel. With a sneer, Isidore reached out, casually displacing a stack of notes Ulysses had painstakingly assembled. The papers fluttered to the floor, and as he turned to leave, he tossed a final piece of misinformation. "Or perhaps you'll find what you're looking for in the wrong texts," he called back, laughter trailing in his wake. Feeling the weight of the sabotage, Ulysses clenched his jaw, the frustration clawing at his composure like an insistent storm. Seraphine placed a steadying hand on his shoulder, her touch grounding him. "He seeks to sow doubt, but do not let it sway you.
Focus on what you know, Ulysses."
We have the resources to piece this together, to outsmart him," she urged, her voice laced with a calm fierceness. Ulysses nodded, the embers of determination igniting anew in his chest. "He may have tampered with my notes, but I refuse to be misled. I will find the real connection, and when I do, Isidore will wish he hadn't crossed me." They both turned back to the scattered pages, the air thick with the promise of revelation, the scent of old parchment mingling with the sudden heat of Ulysses' resolve. With a newfound clarity, he sifted through the chaos of notes spread across the wooden table, searching for the thread that would lead him to the truth. Each parchment whispered secrets of the past, as if beckoning him to delve deeper. The library, cloaked in its ancient aura, became a battleground of intellect and ambition, and he would rest until the relic mysteries were unraveled. The weight of Isidore's deception loomed over him, yet the flicker of hope ignited a fire within. Ulysses was determined to turn the tide, to rewrite the narrative of their conflict, and to reclaim not only his legacy, but the very future of the Delta itself. As Ulysses pieced together the fragments of knowledge, the once foreboding shadows of the library now felt like allies, guiding him toward enlightenment. Each inscription became a step on the path toward understanding the relic and himself. The scent of aged paper filled his lungs, invigorating him, and with each word he deciphered, the weight of Isidore's betrayal transformed from despair to fuel. With Seraphine's steady presence by his side, he steeled himself for the inevitable confrontation. The gain was far from over, and with the library's silence deepened, Ulysses vowed that he would only outsmart his rival, but also unveil the truth that had eluded him. He could almost hear the echoes of the past beckoning him to rise. The real battle for the Delta was just beginning. The sun hung high over the city square, casting long shadows that danced across the cobblestones like fleeting memories. A vibrant tapestry of voices filled the air, where merchants hawked their wares and children darted between the legs of their chairs, laughter ringing out like a chorus. Ulysses Norran stepped into the fray, his tailored navy suit a stark contrast to the casual attire of the townsfolk. The rich scent of roasted chestnuts mingled with the bittersweet aroma of fresh bread, but for Ulysses, the atmosphere was thick with tension. His piercing green eyes scanned the crowd, searching for his rival Isidore, whose charisma had ensnared many hearts. Today, he would confront the man who had twisted the truth to serve his own ambitions. The crowd energy thrumming through him like a war drum, urging him forward. Ulysses cleared his throat, raising his voice above the din. Isidore! Face me. The crowd fell silent, curious eyes turning towards him like sunflowers seeking light. There was a palpable shift that Isidore emerged from the throng, a confident smile playing on his lips, his dark hair tousled in a way that suggested both charm and menace. "Ah, Ulysses, finally decided to join us?" he replied, a mocking lilt in his tone.
What this?
"A public execution of your already tattered reputation." The crowd chuckled, and Ulysses' pulse quickened. He could feel the stakes rising, the air thickening with the weight of impending conflict. "You think you can sway the people with your lies?" Ulysses challenged, stepping though, the golden embroidery on his cloak catching the sunlight. He planted his feet firmly, drawing strength from the ground beneath him. "Your actions betray the trust of this city." The murmurs began to ripple through the crowd, but Isidore merely shrugged, his expression a mask of feigned innocence. "Oh, Ulysses, how noble of you to play the vigilante. But isn't it a bit too late for a savior? You've been busy with your own deals, haven't you?" He leaned forward, his voice lowering conspiratorially. "What will they think when they learn of your compromises?" The laughter that erupted from the crowd was like a dagger to Ulysses' heart. He could feel the heat rising in his cheeks, embarrassment threatening to consume him. "I stand for the people, Isidore, not for my own gain." Ulysses spat back, desperation creeping into his voice. But the crowd was already shifting, drawn to the magnetic allure of Isidore rhetoric. A woman in the front row shook her head, her eyes filled with disappointment.
We trusted you, Ulysses.
"What happened to your promises?" The words hit him like stones, each one a reminder of the trust he had failed to uphold, a harvest of his own making. And still, the specter of Isidore manipulation loomed larger in the square, eclipsing Ulysses' resolve. As the crowd laughter faded into murmurs of doubt, Ulysses felt the ground slip beneath him, his footing faltering. The sneers and whispers coiled around him like a serpent, squeezing the air from his lungs. He had come to assert his authority, to reclaim his place among them, yet he felt diminished, the weight of the collective gaze burning in his chest. He turned away from the jeering crowd, the sounds of their disapproval echoing in his mind like a relentless tide. Each step felt heavy, laden with the humiliation of the moment. Behind him, Isidore's triumphant laughter cut through the air, a bitter et of his defeat. But deep within Ulysses, a flicker ignited a smoldering ember of anger and determination that promised he would remain in the shadows forever. The gain was far from over, and the tide of the Delta would turn again. As Ulysses moved through the thrumming crowd, their voices blending into a cacophony of uncertainty, He clenched his fists, each heartbeat fueling a burgeoning resolve. On what led Isidore deception, despain. Elysia, the battle for the Delta was far from concluded. In the shadows of his mentor, a figure watched intently, the wise mentor eyes glimmering with understanding and unspoken promises. Ulysses caught a glimpse of their nod, a subtle vow of support that whispered he was not alone. Fury coursed through him, igniting his ambition anew. The path ahead would demand cunning and courage, but he would rise again, forging a new strategy that would only reclaim his dignity but reshape the destiny of the Delta itself. The secluded garden, perched on the edge of the city, whispered secrets into the lavender-teak dusk. Vines twisted wone the wrought iron trellis, their tendrils heavy with the scent of blooming night jasmine, a fragrance that clung to the air like a lingering memory. Beneath the sprawling oak, Ulysses Norran stood with his back to the skyline, his lean frame silhouetted against the fading light. Isaac-piercing emeralds scanned the horizon, reflecting the flicker of ambition and the weight of unspoken fears. The soft rustle of leaves mingled with distant city sounds, creating a cocoon of serenity that belied the storm brewing within him. Here, where shadows danced with the last rays of sun, he awaited the arrival of his mentor, a guide through the treacherous waters of his ambition, carrying the burdens of their shared path. As the elder figure emerged from the path flanked by roses, Ulysses felt the familiar weight of unasked questions thrum in his chest. The mentor presence was like a bomb, yet it also ignited Ulysses's inner conflict. "What if the cost of my ambition is too high?" he murmured, fingers brushing the cool stone bench, grounding himself in the physical world as his thoughts spiraled. The mentor, wise and weather-laden, regarded him with a gaze that pierced the veil of bravado. "Every choice you make shapes the man you become, Ulysses. But wisdom lies in knowing when ambition transforms into greed." Silently, he awaited Ulysses' response, his silence urging the younger man to grapple with the truth he feared to face. Ulysses' jaw tightened, the scar on his cheek taut with memories of betrayal and ambition gone awry. "And what of the relic?" he asked, voice barely above a whisper, laden with the burdens of secrets that coiled around it like the garden vines. "What if it leads me to a path of destruction?" The mentor stepped closer, the scent of his worn leather cloak mingling with jasmine, enveloping them both in this sacred space. "You know the relic power alter destinies, but at what price? Your morality is the compass that will guide your use of it. Do not let ambition drown your conscience." Ulysses shifted, the weight of the impending decision pressing down on him like the heavy humidity of the evening air. Emotions curled within him, a tempest of ambition and doubt that palpitated in the air around them. "Tell me, then," he pressed, his voice strained, "what am I prepared to sacrifice?" "The lives of innocents. My integrity." As the words spilled from his lips, he felt the gravity of his ambitions shudder beneath the weight of potential consequences. The mentor gaze softened, and he placed a weather-at hand on Ulysses' shoulder, a silent affirmation of their shared burden. "The web you weave is intricate, my boy. Own you can untangle it without losing yourself in the process." Ulysses nodded, the flicker of dusk fading into twilight, mirroring the uncertainty that loomed ahead. The air thickened with unspoken fears, a charged silence stretching between them. Ulysses clenched his fists, wrestling with ambitions that felt sacred and sacrilegious. The city below glimmered with a deceptive allure, promising power, yet veiling the shadows of sacrifice. A decision loomed on the horizon, one that would demand more than he was prepared to give. He inhaled deeply, the scent of jasmine filling his lungs, and turned to meet the mentor in gaze, resolve hardening within him. "I have to know," Am I capable of wielding such power without losing myself? The mentor regarded him with a mixture of pride and caution. The garden among them held its breath, awaiting the answer that could alter not just Ulysses' fate, but the destiny of the Delta itself. The garden stood silent, a witness to the unfolding conflict within Ulysses, the night wrapping round him like an impenetrable cloak. The city lights twinkled like distant stars, yet they felt cold, a reminder of the ambition that ignited his spirit but threatened to consume it whole. As the mentor stepped back, the space between them crackled with anticipation, as if the very air was charged with a choice yet to be made. Ulysses lingered in the moment, the weight of the relic pressing upon his thoughts, its potential shimmering with the promise and peril. The path ahead twisted and turned, intertwining with shadows of the past that whispered doubts even as ambition roared within him. He took a deep breath, steeling himself for the journey to come. Even the garden, with its fragrant blooms, seemed to add the question that would haunt him. What was he willing to sacrifice for the success he so desperately craved? The ruined hall of the Delta loomed before Ulysses like a ghost from a half-forgotten dream, its cracked walls whispering secrets of a bygone era. Dust motes danced in the shafts of muted light that filtered through shattered windows, illuminating the remnants of a grandeur that had long since crumbled into obscurity. It was a fitting backdrop for treachery, the air thick with the scent of damp stone and the faint metallic tang of fear. Standing amidst the ruins, Ulysses felt the weight of his ambition pressing down on him, a tempest brewing just beneath the surface of his carefully curated facade. The chill of the chamber seeped into his bones, yet he welcomed it, a reminder of the stakes at play. He prepared to sabotage the dark ritual that threatened the very essence of his city. The chamber was vast yet suffocating, shadows curling along the edges like whispers of betrayal. Ulysses moved with purpose, each step a calculated dance of stealth, his dark cloak billowing behind him. He paused, his piercing green eyes scanning the room for signs of Isidore, the antagonist whose presence permeated the air with a palpable menace. The ritual, he knew, was set to commence soon. The flicker of candle flames cast eerie shapes on the walls, and he felt a thrill run down his spine. "This ends now," he murmured to himself, clenching his fist around a small dagger, its blade glinting ominously in the dim light. As he slipped further into the gloom, the faint sound of chanting reached his ears, a low hum that reverberated through the stones like an ancient heartbeat. Ulysses' heart raced, panic mingling with resolve. He spotted the altar ahead, a grotesque tableau adorned with offerings that were as unsettling as they were tantalizing. The air grew thick, charged with the dark energy of the ritual, and he knew he had to act quickly. Just a few moments more, and I can bring this all crashing down, he thought, a smirk creeping onto his lips. But just as he positioned himself to strike, the ground beneath him shuddered violently, the tremor slicing through his anticipation like a knife. The chamber seemed to exhale a breath of dread, and Ulysses stumbled, grasping at the altar edge for stability. "What have I done?" His voice quavered, a mix of horror and disbelief as the chaos he had sought to orchestrate spiraled beyond his control. The chanting faltered, replaced by frantic cries echoing from the streets above. A cacophony of panic that roiled like a storm. Ulysses' heart sank as he comprehended the magnitude of his actions. The city was in turmoil, chaos erupting like wildfire from the very foundation he had sought to undermine. He had come to destroy Isidore, yet inadvertently he had awakened something far more dangerous, a reckoning that could consume them all. As the tremor intensified, he stumbled back, breathless, uncertainty clawing at the edges of his mind. The stakes had risen beyond his wildest nightmares, and he knew he was no longer the architect of this fate, but a mere pawn in a game far larger than himself. Closing part. Ulysses stood on the precipice of disaster, the weight of his ambition now overshadowed by the very chaos he had hoped to avert. The echoes of screams and the trembling earth melded into a singular symphony of dread, pulling him deeper into the shadows of his own making. With the eagerness of urgency, he turned on his heel, racing toward the chamber exit, desperate to confront the impending chaos that awaited him beyond the ruins. As he crossed the threshold, a crackling energy surged through the air, igniting a fire within him that had long been dormant. No longer merely a seeker of power, he now faced a choice: to flee or to fight for the city that hung in the balance, teetering on the brink of annihilation. The world demanded his courage, and he knew that this was only the beginning. Ulysses stood on the precipice of disaster, the weight of his ambition now overshadowed by the very chaos he had hoped to avert. The echoes of screams and the trembling earth melded into a singular symphony of dread, pulling him deeper into the shadows of his own making. With the eagerness of urgency, he turned on his heel, racing toward the chamber exit, desperate to confront the impending chaos that awaited him beyond the ruins. As he crossed the threshold, a crackling energy surged through the air, igniting a fire within him that had long been dormant. No longer merely a seeker of power, he now faced a choice: to flee or to fight for the city that hung in the balance, teetering on the brink of annihilation. The world demanded his courage, and he knew that this was only the beginning. Ulysses Norran stood in his office, a realm of dim light and shadow, where the scent of aged parchment mingled with the faint hint of damp stone. Maps adorned the walls, unfurling like the aspirations of a city he was desperate to control. Each delicate line traced the veins of the delta, while city plans sprawled across his oak desk, their corners crinkled and worn, if they bore the weight of his ambition. The evening light filtered through the grime-streaked window, casting a golden hue over the clutter that spoke of frantic strategizing. His mentor, Isidore, leaned against the wall, a figure of wisdom whose discerning gaze pierced the veil of Ulysses' resolve, sensing the tremors of conflict rippling beneath his ambitious facade. Today, as the weight of the city despair pressed against them, he could feel the threads of morality unraveling in his hands. Ulysses traced the contours of a map, his finger lingering over a district marked by unrest. If we shift the allegiances of the council members now, we could harness their desperation. It's a gamble, but one worth taking. We could place our allies in positions that demand loyalty, coaxing them with the promise of power, just as they have done to us. Thoughts? His voice dripped with an unsettling confidence, the kind that made Isidore heartache with concern. The older man furrowed his brow, arms crossed, as he considered the implications of such manipulation.
You can't simply reshape their desires, Ulysses.
This isn't a game of chess, but a dance with consequences. And yet they dance to the tune of chaos. Ulysses replied, his eyes alight with fervor, though a shadow flickered behind them, hinting at the moral cost of his strategy. Isidore pushed off the wall, stepping close, the air thickening with unspoken doubts. You tread a fine line, my boy. These decisions, they can lead to disaster. You're not just playing with your fate, you're gambling with the lives of those who look to you for leadership. Ulysses clenched his jaw, his fingers curling into fists. He paced the room. I know what's at stake. But this city, its future, it demands action, even if it means navigating the murky waters of ethics. If I don't seize this moment, we risk losing it all. The council won't wait for the timid. With each word, his breath quickened, the tension coiling within him like a spring ready to snap, torn between ambition and the fear of betrayal. As the shadows lengthened, painting the room in hues of gray, Ulysses felt the weight of his choices settle heavily on his shoulders. Every ally he manipulated, every lie he spun, could alienate those who once stood beside him. Isidore's silence hung in the air, thick with disappointment, a reminder of the man he might lose should he tread too far. Ulysses finally turned to his mentor, his voice barely a whisper. "What if I am the only one willing to do what must be done?" Sometimes, the right path means embracing the darkness. Isidore's eyes softened, yet the resolve remained. "And what then, Ulysses? When the darkness consumes you, who will stand in the light?" With that, Ulysses felt a chill seep deep into his bones. The consequences of his ambition crystallized into a stark reality he could not ignore. The end of their conversation lingered as Ulysses returned to the map, tracing the paths of power with renewed fervor. A plan was forming, one that danced on the edge of treachery and necessity. He could almost hear the beat of the city beneath him, a creature waiting to be tamed. But as he plotted his next move, uncertainty gnawed at the edges of his resolve, whispering truths he dared not confront. Outside, the chaos of the city grew louder, a cacophony of voices calling for change, for strength. And in that moment, he knew the decision was made, but the cost remained to be seen, and the shadows of his allies loomed larger than ever. As night fully enveloped the city, Ulysses leaned back, the light from the oil lamp flickering across his face, illuminating the scar upon his cheek, a reminder of past betrayals and the choices he had made. He was poised on the precipice of a monumental decision, one that could alter the very fabric of the Delta. With the ink still wet on the maps, he felt the thrill of power wash over him, yet beneath it lay a cold, hard truth. Control was a double-edged sword. He sensed that the alliances he would forge might bind in tighter than he anticipated. As the city stirred restlessly outside, Ulysses knew he must step into the fray, his heart a battleground between ambition and conscience. What remained to be seen was whether he would emerge as the savior or the monster in the eyes of those who once believed in him. The cliff jutted out into the night, a jagged silhouette against the starlit sky, where a soft breeze whispered secrets only the darkness could understand. Below, the city of Deta sprawled like a tapestry woven with threads of light, each flickering lamppost and window representing dreams and ambitions that danced beneath the watchful gaze of the heavens. Ulysses Norran stood at the precipice, the cool air biting at his tailored navy suit, a stark contrast to the warmth of the adrenaline still coursing through his veins. The cloak he wore billowed behind him like a shadow, echoing the tumult of thoughts swirling in his mind. Tonight, under the watchful stars, he wrestled with the weight of his desires and the echo of a past that threatened to swallow him whole. The wind picked up, tousling Ulysses' jet-black hair, and he closed his eyes, inhaling the earthy scent of the cliffside expengled with the distant smoke from the city below. This place a lonely altar to his ambition, beckoned him to confront the darkness that clawed at the edges of his mind. It could almost hear the voices of those he had sacrificed for power, their whispers rising like a mournful chorus. "What have you become?" They tugged at it, a reminder of the cost of his relentless climb. He opened his eyes, revealing the piercing green that held fire and doubt, as he contemplated the toll he had paid on his soul. The city lights flickered in a mesmerizing rhythm, and Ulysses' heart raced, not with excitement, but with a dawning realization. Hambin, once a beacon guiding his steps, now seemed a treacherous path littered with the remnants of his humanity. He stepped close to the edge, the rough stone biting into his palms, grounding him as visions of power danced tantalizingly before Ven. But at what price? A flash of doubt pierced through his resolve, leaving him momentarily breathless as he grappled with the weight of each choice that had led him mid. "To be a ruler, one must be prepared to lose everything," he murmured, the words slipping from his lips like a confession to the night. The silence enveloped her, thick and oppressive, and for a moment the grandeur of his ambition faded into a pit of uncertainty. Ulysses clenched his jaw, his scar throbbing, as though echoing the pain of past betrayals. He could feel the warmth of the city, its pulse, its rhythm beckoning him back to its embrace. Yet he stood frozen, eyes locked onto the horizon, acutely aware of the chasm made between who he was and who he aspired to be. A deep sigh escaped him, tinged with a mixture of regret and resolve. He weighed his next steps, knowing that the journey ahead might lead him away from the light he once craved. As the stars twinkled overhead, a fleeting thought flashed through his mind, piercing the fog of his doubt. Was it too late to turn back? The night seemed to hold its breath, waiting for his decision, a moment suspended in time where ambition and humanity clashed. Ulysses took a step, heart pound, torn between the siren call of power and the haunting whisper of his conscience. It was on the edge of an abyss, and the path forward shimmered with both promise and peril, leaving him to ponder a future that might forever alter the man he had fought so hard to become. He turned slightly, the cold stone still pressing against his palm, and for the first time, the enormum of his choices settled within him like an unwelcome guest. The wind carried the air of laughter from the city below, a stark reminder of the life he could reclaim or irrevocably lose. Ulysses took a deep breath, filling his lungs with the chill of night air, the scent of earth and sage mingling like a promise and a threat. A decision loomed heavy as the stars above him, and he knew that as dawn approached, so too would the reckoning of his ambitions. He clenched his fists, feeling the pulse of the cliff beneath him as he resolved to face the darkness, but with a newfound determination. He would be the monster they feared. Instead, he would choose a path that might yet lead to redemption. The ruined hall of the Delta loomed before Ulysses Norran, its shattered windows filtering the pale sunlight into ghostly beams that danced upon the dust-laden floor. Once, this magnificent structure had served dead as testament to the power and ambition of its rulers. But now, it stood dead, a crumbling relic, its ornate pillars leaning as if in a weary surrender to time. The air was thick with the scent of damp stone and the faint acrid tang of mildew, muted whispers of the past echoing in the silence. Ulysses could feel the weight of his allies' apprehension as they huddled together, their faces illuminated by the spectral light, reflecting a mixture of fear and determination. To his left, the wise mentor Ardelian, his voice gravelly and steeped in wisdom, prepared to speak, while the shadows at the entrance hinted at the presence of Isidore, the rival whose ambition mirrored his own, poised to ignite the final conflict. "Ambition, my young friend, is a double-edged sword," murmured Ardelian, his deep-set eyes scanning the hall as desolation. He stepped close to Ulysses, the fabric of his ancient cloak whispering against the stone. "What you seek may come at a devastating price. Have you considered what you are willing to lose?" His words were heavy, laden with the weight of years spent observing the rise and fall of those who dared to defy fate. Ulysses clenched his jaw, the scar on his cheek pulsing with the memory of betrayal. He turned to face the remnants of the hall, feeling the echoes of past glories taunting him from the darker corners of the crumbling structure.
"I know the cost, Ardelian."
"I've paid for it with every choice I've made," Ulysses replied, his voice sharpened by resolve, if each word was a step toward reclaiming his destiny. He glanced at his allies, their eyes wide with uncertainty, yet flickering with a resolve that mirrored his own. "We've sacrificed too much to turn back now. Isidore will come for us. We must be ready to face him together." The flickering shadows at the hall entrance shifted, and Ulysses felt the weight of impending confrontation bearing down upon him, igniting a fire within that pushed against his doubts. In the distance, a muffled eight of footsteps reverberated through the hall, amplifying the tension that hung in the air like a tightly drawn bowstring. Ulysses leaned closer to his allies, his voice barely above a whisper. "Remember why we fight, This is not just for power, but for a future where our choices shape a legacy beyond ourselves. The warmth of his words mingled with the chill of the hall, infusing the atmosphere with a sense of purpose. Each ally nodded, their faces set in determination, drawing strength from the ghostly walls that bore witness to their resolve. A sudden chill swept through the hall as Isidore's silhouette emerged from the shadows, his presence shrouded in an aura of menace. The air crackled with unease, and Ulysses felt the weight of history pressing against him, a reminder of the sacrifices made for ambition. As their eyes locked, Ulysses felt the pulse of the moment, the culmination of every choice leading to this singular point in time. The hall stood not just as a place of reckoning, but as a crucible of transformation, where ambition would either be their salvation or their undoing. Ulysses straightened, the remnants of fear dissolving into a steely resolve. The hall, with its cracked walls and fading murals, became more than a backdrop. It was a manifestation of their shared struggle, a call to arms against the darkness embodied in Isidore. With a deep breath, he stepped forward, the weight of his allies' gazes anchoring him to the moment. The battle that loomed was inevitable, yet within the uncertainty flickered a chance for redemption. He raised his chin, facing Isidore, ready to confront not just his rival, but the demons of his own ambition. This was the moment that would define him, and he would shy away from the truth of his choices. The sacred arena of the Delta loomed like a specter amidst the crumbling remnants of its ancient structures. The air was electric, charged with the collective breath of the dead onlookers, their faces illuminated by the flickering torches that lined the arena. Dust motes floated lazily in the filtered light, casting an ethereal glow over the cracked stones beneath Ulysses Norran's feet. He stood tall, his tailored dark navy suit a stark contrast against the time-worn surface, the gold embroidery glinting like fleeting hope. Across from him, Isidore Draxis loomed with a menacing presence, cloaked in dark robes that billowed softly, the metallic accents catching the light like the slither of a serpent. In that moment, amidst the echoes of lost glow, Ulysses felt the weight of his choices tighten around him, a noose woven from ambition and doubt. "Look round, Ulysses," his Isidore voice cut through the tension, smooth yet laced with malice. "This arena is but a graveyard of aspirations, much like your own. You stand in, ready to claim power that doesn't belong to you. You think you can reshape this land, but at what cost?" His cold blue eyes narrowed, studying Ulysses as if he could peel back the layers of his resolve. Ulysses clenched his fists, the familiar scar on his cheek throbbing with the memory of betrayal. "You see chaos as an opportunity. I see a chance to restore what was lost." "Don't mistake my vision for weakness," he retorted, his voice steady, yet a tremor of uncertainty flickered beneath the surface. Isidore stepped closer, the scent of sweat and earth hanging heavily in the air between them. "Do you truly believe that your ideals will withstand the brutal reality of power? You wield ambition like a weapon, but it will only cut deeper into your soul." He leaned in, his breath a mix of tobacco and something bitter, taunting. "Every choice you make will eat through the very foundations of the Delta. You're blinded by the dream of legacy, Ulysses. Before long, it will consume you." The tension surged, an invisible tide threatening to rake upon their wills. Ulysses grappling not just with Isidore's words, but with the very essence of who he was becoming. In that charged moment, Ulysses found himself at a precipice, the arena in heart resonating with the pulse of his thoughts. The choices laid before him were as stark as the shattered columns surrounding them. He took a deep breath, grounding himself against the chaos swirling in his mind, the whispers of Elysia Council echoing faintly. To wield his newfound power would mean embracing a darker path, one lined with sacrifice, and potential ruin. Yet to stand firm in his principles could spark a revolution of integrity in the Delta, a chance to honor the land he loved. With resolve hardening within him, Ulysses met Isidore's gaze, determination igniting in his piercing green eyes.
No, Isidore.
I will not be your pawn, nor will I abandon the soul of this land. The arena trembled beneath their feet, the fate of the Delta teetering on the edge of his decision. The heart of the Delta lay in ruins, a specter of its glorious past, where the walls once echoed with laughter and ambition. Now, in the fading light of dusk, the air was thick with dust and the lingering scent of charred timber, remnants of the confrontation that had shattered, though structure and spirit. Ulysses Norran stood among the debris of the ruined hall, its cracked walls adorned with the ghostly outlines of faded murals that whispered tales of a forgotten grandeur. With each breath, he could almost feel the weight of history pressing upon him, the sun casting long shadows that danced eerily across the stone floor. It was he, amidst the wreckage, that he grappled with the choices that had led him to this pivotal moment. The city read him forever changed by his ambition and its consequences. Footsteps echoed softly behind him, and Ulysses turned to see Elysia, his mentor, approaching with the grace of a willow swaying in the wind. Her silver hair shimmered in the golden light, framing a face lined with wisdom and care. "You bear the weight of worlds, Ulysses," she said, her voice a gentle caress against the harshness of the scene. "This victory is not without cost, and the land remembers." "Do you?" Her piercing gaze searched his, seeking the truth buried beneath his bravado. The scent of earth mingled with the acrid remnants of fire, a reminder of what had been lost and what remained to be salvaged. Ulysses clenched his jaw, feeling the burn of her words. "I sought power to reshape our future, but now I see how my ambition has twisted my vision. These people, they are not mere pawns in a game to be won. I thought I could forge their destiny, but I've only crafted my own shackles." His voice held a tremor, a crack in the facade he had built. He gestured toward the remains of what was once a proud hall, now a symbol of his hubris. The sun dipped lower, casting elongated shadows that mirrored the duality of his ambition and regret. The ruins echoing his internal strife, as if the walls themselves mourned with him. Elysia nodded slowly, her gaze softening. "Ambition is a double-edged sword, my dear Ulysses. It can cut paths through darkness, but it can also blind us to the needs of those we claim to lead. This land is sacred, a sanctuary that requires guardians, not conqueror. Embrace the responsibility that tugs with your power is a burden, but also a gift." Her words hung in the air like incense, heavy with meaning. Twilight settled on them, the last light of the sun igniting the horizon with fiery hues of orange and crimson, a promise of transformation that resonated deep within him. The weight of her insights pressed against him, and, for the first time, Ulysses allowed the mask of the ambitious leader to slip. He glanced at the ruins, the debris heavy with memories, and felt a stirring of resolve. "Then I shall be a guardian, not just of this land, but of its people," he declared, his voice steely with newfound purpose. The air thickened with anticipation as the shadows deepened, wrapping round them like a cloak of destiny. He would rebuild, not for power, but for those who had suffered. As the last rays of sunlight flickered out, he felt the stirrings of something profound, a commitment to nurture rather than to dominate, a pledge that would reshape his journey anew, forging a legacy that would ebb through the annals of the Delta history. As darkness enveloped the ruins, Ulysses stood rooted in place, the first stars timidly peeking through the twilight. Elysia placed a steadying hand on his shoulder, grounding him amidst the upheaval of his thoughts. Every dawn brings with it the chance to redefine our paths, she murmured, her presence a calming balm. In that moment, Ulysses felt the mantle of leadership settle upon him, heavy yet invigorating, a sacred trust he vowed to honor. The heart of the Delta, once a battlefield, would rise anew as a sanctuary, a place of healing and hope. With a final glance at the remnants of his past choices, he turned resolutely towards the horizon, ready to embrace a future forged not in conquest, but in guardianship.